in the state of the state as well as our home country of Guyana.
Yeah, so just to recap, so in 2020, March of 2020, there was an election in Guyana. At the time, the APNU was a sitting government. The election, you had a large controversy where the APNU. We had individuals, Mingo, Lowenfield, for those who are familiar, who were holding up the counting of votes because it became increasingly clear that the APNU had lost the election. The APNU was refusing to concede for months on end. Eventually, after Caribbean Committee-led recount was done, the PP was a clear winner, and it was only after international support by the U.S., which was under the Trump administration at the time, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo threatening sanctions against the Guyanese government at the time, and also countries from the Canadian government, the UK government, the EU, that finally the APNU government stepped down and the PP was able to democratically take power. You have supporters of the APNU who continue to sow doubt about that and talk about conspiracies and foreign-led conspiracies, U.S. intervention, but they're completely unfounded claims. Their goals seem to be to increase racial division in Guyana, which we should all be against. And you have a situation where the Democratic Attorney General attended their event and promoted their claims. She said that she would use her authority and her position to get other Democratic Attorney Generals and the U.S. Department of Justice under the Biden administration to look into these allegations and essentially support it. And Rickford Burke, who is currently under investigation for many crimes in Guyana, she openly said that if anything happens to him, she would stand in the way, which you want to talk about. America complains when there's foreign interference allegedly in an American election. She was threatening interference in Guyanese politics, which I think was completely inappropriate. And you have individuals like Dr. Tara Singh, who they normally vote Democrat, but it turned them off so much that I think many in this community will now be voting Republican. Right?
Right. They are most likely to do that now because, but just for this time,
yeah,
we monitor their behavior. For too long, they have taken our community for granted.
Yeah.
We are a political force now. We may not able to elect a representative now because they split our district into about 5 different constituencies. But at least we can take the balance as to who wins and who loses.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right now we are very much upset about the position they took, as well as the people in Guyana. They wanted democratically elected elections. The European Union, the Carter Center, the United Nations, the Commonwealth, the OAS, 100 countries were there and they subscribed and they said the PP want the government fair and square. They are the left. But yet they continue to describe the PP as installed. So they're providing a platform which they can talk to the PP government as they did in 1953, 1964. The Democrats haven't got a glorious history as far as Guyana is concerned.
Yeah,
it's created the most problems.
For many who don't know, the Kennedy administration back in the 1960s, for various reasons in the Cold War era, had supported the ousting of the Jagan government in Guyana. So there's a long history going back there. Yes.
Right now, we are focusing on defense of democracy, freedom of speech, freedom of everything, because they have accused this government of breaking democratic norms and values, which is totally wrong. We invited them to visit Guyana and see for themselves, rather than listen to one side story and not the other. We invited them. Whether they will go, I don't know. But it's really wrong.
I'll see. We have the candidate for U.S. Senate, Joe Pinion. We're currently live. This is a feed going back to Guyana as well.
Wonderful.
Yes, and I just wanted to know if you have any comments directed to the Guyanese community. Yes.
So. Let the Guyanese community know that we have to have respect for law and order, that those people with trouble at their own house shall indeed inherit the wind, as the Bible tells us. And when you have people that are calling for violence in Guyana, when you have people who are trying to bring that violence here to a Guyanese community in the United States of America, in the state of New York, I think that we have to stand up and say that we need to come together, rebuke that violence, and make sure that we stand for rightful leadership and rightful governance.
So for those who don't know, this is Joe Pinion. He's currently running in the U.S. Senate race against Chuck Schumer. Yes. And just in general, I mean, the Guyanese community, typically they vote Democrat, as we know, like many minority communities, immigrant communities in the U.S. I think that this comment by the New York Attorney General may change that, as we're seeing today with people coming out. But in general, do you have a message towards those who, they vote Democrat and they always vote Democrat, right? So do you have a message towards them?
Clear, right? I am the first Caribbean American ever nominated for U.S. Senate in the history of New York State by either party.
Yeah.
My mother came here from Jamaica to pursue her American dreams. And like so many Caribbean families, we have seen the outcomes that were promised, not delivered. In this city, 70% of the black children and the minority students failed the math exam. Just 2 weeks ago, we found that out.
Yeah.
65%.
A lot of them set back during the COVID time as well, because you want to talk about class issues. Those who could afford it could do remote schooling, but those who can't, are getting set back.
Absolutely. 65% of our minority students are not reading at grade level, right? It is child abuse brought about by our government. And my opponent, Chuck Schumer, has been in power for 42 years. He's been in the Senate for 24 years. He is the most powerful member of the United States Senate, and that power does not benefit our state, and it certainly has not benefited our communities. And so if we recognize that the poverty rates for black people, for minorities are too high, if we recognize that in many ways the disparities are too high when it comes to healthcare, then this is our moment to be able to give
I'll just get Attorney General candidate Michael Henry. Do you have anything that you want to say towards the Guyanese community? This is currently being shown on Globespan and in Guyana right now. It's being live streamed.
Sure, absolutely. We're not going to tolerate threats of political violence. And people also come to this country to live freely, live side by side, no matter what our backgrounds are. And for someone to come and say that they want to inflict threats of political violence on people in this community and their homes and their stores is not going to be tolerated when I'm the Attorney General of this state. And for Letitia James to engage in advancing this election denialism, the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, the EU, multiple Caribbean nations have all said that this was a fair election, and for her to engage in this and threaten her office and then try to get the Biden administration to get involved in this attempted coup and behavior of people like Rickford Burke, who is wanted in the country for terrorism, for racism, and many other charges, is disgraceful. And she showed that she does not care about the Indo-Guyanese community. And I wish she would have showed up and debated me and showed the courage to debate, because we could have discussed issues like this. And for her to engage in this behavior with a known criminal is horrific and is a despicable mindset for a chief law enforcement officer to have.
Yeah, and to further, do you think that it exposes some hypocrisy? I mean, the Democrats currently in U.S. politics, they largely campaign on being against racism, being against denial of election results. Yet you have Letitia James, an incumbent Democrat Attorney General, supporting somebody who's trying to inflict racial division and deny election results in Guyana.
She's the ultimate hypocrite. She talks about threats against democracy, and she refuses to engage in a debate. She is an anti-police, pro-criminal activist pretending to be an attorney general. If it wasn't for hypocrisy, Letitia James wouldn't have a career. Her whole career has been based on hypocrisy. For her to turn her back on this community, she probably didn't think she was being recorded, is disgraceful. Nobody in this Indo-Guyanese community should have to live in fear because someone's behavior is being endorsed by the Attorney General of the state of New York. He's considered a criminal in his home country, and he has no business engaging. Everyone in Guyana knows his behavior and what he's done in his home country. He's not going to do it here when I'm the Attorney General of the state of New York.
Thank you very much. Michael Henry, candidate for Attorney General. So I think they'll be moving down Liberty Avenue now. The outreach to the Guyanese community. Oh, we have a long-standing member of the community here, Mr. Vishnu Mahadio. Is there anything that you'd like to say? We'll walk in and talk.
Yes. Actually, we want to send a strong message that our community would not be disrespected by any elected official. What was done, even if Letitia James was ill-advised by Rickford Burke, she should have taken the time out to consult with other members of the community before she make a public statement. So we are very concerned about this making a difference in our community. We want to be respected because we are also voters, and we want to be respected for that.
I've known you for a long time. You've been personally associated with Democrat politics, Democrat politicians in this borough for a long time. Do you feel like your vote's been taken for granted? The support that this community gives to the Democrat Party has been, in a sense, just neglected here?
Well, this is showing a level of disrespect, because if we are a voting group here you should consult with us to see what we are doing, because we were very strong supporters of all these elected officials, and for them to come at this point and make such a strong statement without consultation is showing that the staff of the elected officials were not properly advised or informed, or this is something that was done improperly.
Yes. So on the topic of elected officials, hopefully Mr. Paul Rodriguez is a candidate for comptroller of the state of New York. Reset Rampal, nice to meet you. This is currently being live streamed in Guyana on Globespan. Yeah, on Facebook and YouTube as well.
Yes.
So, thank you. What is your message to the Guyanese community?
Well, listen, I think for far too long our politicians have been using their offices for to push their personal politics. This has been done at the controller's office. The politicization of the pension plan, as you've probably spoken to my colleague here, Tish James has been using it to push her own personal vendettas, going after political enemies rather than really serving the people. I think New Yorkers are pretty tired. As you were, I think I heard you saying, yeah, they always vote Democrat, but that's the problem. When you have entrenched one-party rule, the people in power know that they're not really accountable to the voters, and then they take the voters for granted. And we're seeing with the high crime, high inflation, rampant corruption, that New Yorkers are hitting the breaking point. Many of them have already left the state. Hundreds of thousands of them have left the state. And the ones who are here and who want to stay here and raise a family here are clamoring for change. And that's what we're bringing to them and really addressing the issues that concern them, not simply focusing on what are frankly largely relevant issues here in the state of New York.
Yeah. You are also from a minority background.
Yeah.
I saw you speak in Harlem before, and I just wonder if you want to talk about the fact that you have certain minority groups such as the Guyanese community, such as the Puerto Rican community. They may be changing their mind, right, about which party they're voting for, and what we're seeing today. The Republican candidates for comptroller, Senate, Attorney General, campaigning this community. We've never seen something like this before. Do you think that this is a one-time thing, or do you think that this is a trend of something that's going to change in the future?
Well, listen, personally, I'm a Republican not because based what I've always said, my values drive my politics, not the other way around. So I've never tried to fit into a particular mold of whether it's Republican or Democrat. Just so happens the way I was raised, the things that I value, the issues that I care about, at least at the present time, seem to fit a lot more with the Republican Party than with the Democratic Party. So I believe, again, it's more of an issue that people are realizing that a lot of the values they hold dear are not necessarily reflected by the Democrats, and the fact that oftentimes immigrants by default will become Democrats because that's what they're told that they're supposed to be, or how they're told they're supposed to think, or they simply assume that Democrat Party stands for democracy, and when I think with anything we've seen more of late, that the Democratic Party stand less and less for democracy. They stand for censorship.
On topic of the democracy, do you want to talk about Letitia James's comment about the Guyanese elections and politics there? And I don't know if you're familiar with the exact statements that she made, but I presume you are. That's why you're here today.
No, I'm definitely. Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't see why she's becoming commenting on these national international issues that seem to have no bearing on her office. It's another one of those examples where I'm telling you that she's using the office to push her personal politics or her personal feuds or vendettas, and using it now to shake down a duly elected government of a sovereign nation, saying that she's going to go with other attorneys generals to put pressure on them simply because she feels that a personal friend of hers somehow has been wrong. How is that the appropriate use of the office? Why don't you care about the people who are living here with high crime, who can't walk down the streets, who are afraid that their children cannot go to school, are not being well educated? That's what she should be focusing on, not what's happening somewhere else. I'm from Puerto Rico, and you don't see me meddling in Puerto Rican politics right now. And I probably have a greater justification perhaps for doing so than she probably has for meddling in Guyanese politics, frankly.
The problem that we have is that the politics has superseded our humanity. that we have failed to deliver on basic necessities for the people who need government to deliver for them the most. The schools are not delivering results for our children. The economy has failed the people who are on the bottom rungs on the economic ladder. They have throttled our economy to the tune of people losing $30,000 on average of their 401k. And that's for people who even had that much money to lose. For the people that had less than that or had no 401k to talk about, they are living hand to mouth. And the hand is getting much further from the mouth because of the fact that you've seen egg prices explode, you've seen beef prices explode, you have seen the cost of milk go up to $6 a gallon, you have seen people paying $15 for chicken cutlets. That is not a sustainable economy. That is not a sustainable America. So we are here walking down Liberty to let people know that your eyes are not lying to you, that this is actually happening to you, that any person that comes to you and says your pain is not real is somebody that we should not be entrusting with power over your life. So to your point, this is something that Republicans have not done before, certainly have not done enough, but nothing changes if nothing changes. We are here to be the change, not only for the Republican Party, but for our communities and for everybody. And so we're asking people to do something maybe they've never thought they would do or would have to do, to fill in a bubble next to somebody with an R next to their name. And I think that it's not because they have embraced the gospel of republicanism, but simply because there is a new breed of Republicans who are here embracing different ideas, embracing different tactics in the name of building the America that was promised.
I think also what some groups have realized, that if you vote reflexively always just one party, regardless of what happens, that party will take you for granted because you know you're in their pocket. And then the other party will say, well, what's the point? No matter how much we reach out to them, they won't listen to us. So that's why it's very important as a political bloc to keep a very open mind. And again, really vote based on your values, not based on any particular party affiliation or tribal affiliation, if you will.
So, 2 points on that. On terms of values, I think a lot of minority groups, look, also the Guyanese community, the Indian community, as well as, for example, the Hispanic community, they're very socially conservative. I'm sorry, there's a car there, but they're very socially conservative. But because of certain issues, for example, the immigration issue, the tone Republicans have used on that in recent years, be it during the Trump presidency, etc., some of them get turned off, and they don't end up voting Republican as a result. Like I mean, Ronald Reagan once said the Hispanics are Republicans; they just don't know it yet.
Yes.
Okay, now
I think a lot of them, a lot of that is frankly, it's a framing, and Republicans haven't always been known to be the best marketers, if you will, to put it bluntly. So I think oftentimes we are framed and we are caricatured to be something that we're really not. First of all, we're very supportive of immigration. We simply want immigration to be done in a proper and legal way. And in fact, most immigrants, particularly those who came here illegally, will agree with you and are just as offended and incensed by the fact that maybe other people who didn't do it the proper way are given a leg up than the rest of them. You know, if you live out in Asia in particular, as you're mentioning, you can't just walk across the border. You have to jump through a lot of hoops and do a lot of things to be able to come to this country legally. The fact that someone can just simply walk across the border and then be given everything and their path be completely facilitated by mere virtue of their proximity to our country, for many hardworking immigrants, is something that they don't support. But the way that it's always framed is that we Republicans somehow don't like immigrants. We Republicans don't want them in.
I'll follow up on that. So, you have a lot of Guyanese who maybe came up illegally at some point for different reasons. They wanted a better life. They wanted the American dream, and they saw a way to come, and that's how they came. Ronald Reagan supported amnesty. Do you, at the time, the 1986 amnesty, do you support a compassionate solution to the issue of otherwise law-abiding people who came over here for the American dream?
I do support definitely comprehensive immigration reform. How the specifics of how that takes requires more analysis. But let me tell you, when Ronald Reagan implemented the amnesty was always with a.
It was supposed to be. It was supposed to be border security for the amnesty, and the border security didn't end up.
What we got was amnesty and no border security.
Yeah.
When George W. Bush, who actually was willing to go against his own party.
Yeah.
And whatever you think of George W. Bush about Iraq,
Yeah,
and anything
yeah, he was
about
working with Ted
immigration,
Kennedy at the time, and then Rick Santorum kind of derailed it.
he was willing to go against his own party to pass comprehensive immigration reform. And bottom line is, he really didn't get much support, from either side. Obviously, each side always has their asks, but the Democrats, by and far, I'm not saying that the Republicans are necessarily always any better at the time, but the Democrats, rather than say, okay, let's negotiate, we can accept these things that you're asking for, we can't others, their attitude was simply, well, we won't accept it because it doesn't go far enough. But the nature of politics is compromise. Yeah. And where there can be no compromise, then there can be no solutions. And the issue is, oftentimes, and this is what often people don't want to accept, that there are some issues that are so polarizing and are such wedge issues for the purposes of electing people that they don't really want to solve them. I frankly think that there's many Democrats who have no interest in really solving the illegal immigration issue, because, or just immigration in general.
You think they love the issue more than actually solving the issue they have for election time?
How many presidents have you heard that they said, including Barack Obama, who said, the first thing I'm going to do, not the third, not the fourth, not the 27th, the first thing I'm going to do is pass comprehensive immigration reform. And when they go in there with a supermajority in the Senate, with control of the House, with the presidency, with all of the levers of power available at their disposal, and yet they go in there and they don't do it. Then they said on the re-election, okay, I promise you I'll do it in re-election, and they still don't do it.
In terms, Obama, in 2008 had that Obama landslide, House and Senate win. 2010 in the midterms, Republicans did very, very well. Not as well as 1994, which was the Republican Revolution.
Sure.
There are some who believe that this election will be similar to the 1994 election. George Pataki, for instance, said the fact that New York is in play shows that this is going to be like a 1994 Republican Revolution year. What do you want to say about the fact? I mean, you were talking earlier about the one-party rule. One-party rule has traditionally led to non-competitive elections, which could be reflected in the fact that today the early vote numbers came out. Only 208,000 early votes were cast in this whole city of New York.
Yeah, I think it's a little higher, but
well, the numbers on CBS as of this morning was that. Okay, let's even say it's a bit higher than that. In a city of 8 million, you only have that many people voting.
Exactly. Yes.
So, I mean, now the elections are finally getting competitive again. Is there anything that you want to say just in general about having competitive election being good for democracy in New York, having Republicans in contention out here?
Keep in mind that one of the pillars for the founding of this country, one of the foundations, was the idea of checks and balances. When you have one-party rule, entrenched one-party rule, there are no checks and balances. And that means that you are basically putting yourself at the mercy of some benevolent bureaucrat or benevolent politician, which I'm sorry to say there's few and far between of this, or at least many of them start being do-gooders and don't unfortunately last very long, particularly when there's no check on what they can do. There's no check on their power. Just as I believe Republicans should be checked on some of their impulses, of course the Democrats must be checked as well. And if you have a city and a state, which, mind you, has a reputation, particularly at the state level, of being one of the most corrupt states in the country, and a great reason for that is because you have the same club of people getting reelected, often some of them for life, and they face no consequences for any of their actions, whether they're good or bad actions. So if the reason why corruption is perpetuated in this state is because there is no check on it. There is no balance. The controller, whose primary function is supposed to be providing that oversight, he's happy to punch down and go after petty corruption, but he never punches up and goes after any of the people, for example, he served in the assembly with, or the governor, or anyone else.
And I think if you do end up winning on Tuesday, you would be a check on that. So just a reminder, this is Paul Rodriguez. The election is Tuesday, November 8th. Yes. And we have Paul Rodriguez, Joe Pinion, and Michael Henry out here in Little Guyana. Thank you so much,
Thank
Mr.
you
Rodriguez.
so much for your time. I appreciate it.
We'll ask some of the people turning out here why have they turned out today. Sir, do you want to comment on this? Is live on Globespan.
Well, we want to see
now.
change.
Yes.
We want to see change. We want to see something being done. So we're coming here to support Mr. Henry Rodriguez. See change.
So is it the change issue in New York in general, the high crime, etc., or are you out here today because of the way Letitia James commented on Guyanese politics?
We are descendants of Indian Guyanese. We can't let the pick people out and just enact on racism. We do a lot of donations. We do a lot of involvement in a lot of the Guyanese community here. And these are hard work.
Yep.
Whether whatever color, what background, we are hard.
Election is around here right now.
We came here to build something from nothing, to succeed.
Going on in our community and in the country.
So, if you don't mind me asking, you obviously came here as an immigrant, won the American dream. Do you typically vote Democrat? Yes. And is this going to be one of the first years you end up voting Republican?
Yes. This is one of the first.
Yes.
Because I'm a descendant of Guyanese parents who left back in 1960. Of course, went from England to Canada to here. So we are supported of all the Nine Nations and so forth.
Yeah.
So we're here to make a difference. And we are making a difference. We don't want to be slandered as a people.
And do you feel like the Democrats in New York have taken your votes for granted, and then have taken your vote for granted?
Yes.
And now you're finally seeing the Republicans come out here, campaign directly to you?
Correct.
Yes. And just what are the key issues for you in this election?
Well, right now, the crime is a problem, and we want to make sure the economy is also powerful because it's a big problem.
Yeah.
It's scared to use this subway. Your mom, you leave home, you leave your mom, might go to the supermarket, she mightn't come back home.
Ladies and gentlemen,
What kind of crime that goes on?
In terms of statistics, the transit crime is currently up 40% in New York.
Yes.
You have the governor of New York in the debate against Lee Zeldin. When violent crime was brought up, she said, "I don't know why that's so important to you."
I saw it.
I mean, if the Democrats do lose New York, which really hasn't happened in many years, the way that they handle the crime issue will be a huge factor.
Yeah.
Huge factor.
Crime is like on steroids in New York.
Yeah.
Basically.
So I mean, the Democrats handle the crime issue so bad that you have immigrant voters who they voted Democrat all the time, but they're going to vote Republican this year because of the way it's being handled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. It can't get worse.
Were you living in New York during the when Giuliani came in '93?
30 years.
Are you reminded of when it was Ed Koch and David Dinkins in power, high crime rate, and then Giuliani comes in and cleans up?
Yes. He cleaned up Times Square. He cleaned up Port Authority.
So we're currently outside Sybil's. This is a big restaurant in the community, and you have some supporters of the event coming out here today. You have Mr. Dan Paul Narayan, Dr. Dan Paul Narayan, who's very well known in the community. He's currently on the phone now, but I'll ask him. We have a live show on Globespan right now.
Okay.
Is there anything you'd want to say about showing up today?
Yes. What I'd like to say is that we in this community find it very objectionable that we should have a politician who inserted herself in the politics of another country.
Yeah, I mean the Democrats have for many years been saying they're against foreign election interference in the U.S.
Right.
And now they're interfering in another country's politics.
Absolutely, Mr. James, who is the Attorney General for New York, without understanding the complexities of Guyanese politics, and it's very complicated. Took the word of certain people and inserted herself in the politics of the country without understanding that complexity.
No, for those who don't know, Dr. Dan Paul Narayan is a Guyanese American scholar. He went to the LSE. He has his PhD from there. He's very well known in this community, and I've known him my whole life. He very much supports the Democrat Party usually. To see him out here today at this event just shows how much Letitia James's comments have turned off this community.
Yes, and she's also supporting people who have said quite openly that they want to disrupt life in our country and in our city. And we can't, our neighborhoods are working families. And you're going to have people who say openly they want to come and disrupt lives here and burn things down and all that sort of thing and confront us and all of that. This is not what democracy is about. This is not
Yeah.
what peace is about.
Yeah.
And that is what I find objectionable, and that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And anything else you'd want to say about
Well,
the?
I probably will say a few words
Yeah.
a bit later.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yampel.
Does not deserve a vote.
Michael Henry. There again.
And you know, there's over 100,000 Guyanese New Yorkers.
Everybody's got to get the word out.
Yeah. Listen, jump in here. You're the guy I wanted to meet because I heard you're the rising power of the Republican Party.
So,
This is good.
sir, is there anything you want to say about turning out today to this event?
No,
No, nothing.
I'm in the campaign, so
Okay. All right. Nothing you want to say on behalf of your candidate?
my candidates are great, so I know them will win.
No, for the live stream too. Okay. All right.
Going to enjoy it.
All right.
I'm not sure they've already published.
All right. Is there anything you want to say about turning out today to this event? Yeah, we're currently on live stream on GlobeSpan.
Is our
Oh, you're on live.
Yeah.
Fan. Okay, we're part of your organization to help concerned Guyanese with what's happening with politicians in this country against Guyana. We need changes, but we need politicians who can approach their constituents and tell them the truth, not lies. We have known forever that politicians will tell their constituents anything they want to hear to get their vote. And this is the case we have just seen last week and in this week here, where politicians are meddling in other countries' business, spewing lies based on false allegations. And that is wrong. We don't need such politicians in office in the United States of America. So we're looking for candidates that are genuine and that's telling the truth and looking for the best interests of the constituent. We have people who need change in this country. We've seen what's been going on for the last 5 years, and we wish the new candidates all the best.
Yeah. So you talk about the issue of what Letitia James said about the Guyanese election motivating you. So were you somebody who was already concerned about the high crime rate in New York and was thinking about voting against the Democrats for that, or was it this comment in particular that has turned you out today?
This comment brought us out here today, but of course there were issues before, like you said, the high crime rate and the laws not being effective, where magistrates' hands are tied, not being able to prosecute effectively based on crime. That's what's done. So yes, prior to this, but with her comment, it's polarized us to be out here today.
Yeah.
And we don't need such.
If you don't mind me asking, do you typically vote Democrat?
Not typically Democrat.
Okay.
I vote on issues.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. No, because it's very interesting. Today we have a lot of people who they normally vote Democrat. They vote Democrat since they came to the country, and today they're going to end up supporting Republican because of how much the issues, be it high crime or the comments made by Letitia James, have turned them off.
Well, I think that's the story with a lot of Democrats. They have seen what has happened over the last 4 years, and they're looking for change because democratically they are not happy. Mm-hmm. And policies need to be changed, and change is good.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, sir. You want to say your name for anybody?
Oh yeah, Chris Prasad from New York.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. So, Michael Henry here with Dr. Dan Paul, the gentleman from the community. Yes. Okay. Yeah. If you say something together.
I'm standing here with Mr. Michael Henry.
Louder, a bit louder.
Oh, louder.
Yeah.
We're standing here in the heart of Little Guyana with Mr. Michael Henry, candidate here for Attorney General, and he is the man who has his finger on the pulse of Guyanese politics, which is not very, very simple. It's very complicated, but he has unraveled it. Mm-hmm. And he has not inserted himself in the day-to-day workings of Guyana, but he has quite aptly described the situation as it was when for 5 months there was a lot of back and forth, and every court ruling went against.
And if I may say, to the extent that he has made a statement on Guyana's politics, his statement is in favor of the democratic process of Guyana, the upholding the results of a free and fair election. Letitia James's statements were in support of a man who's done everything planning to oppose it.
Well, the question with Ms. James is that she has inserted herself in Guyanese politics without consulting and giving a fair and balanced view of what is going on there. You can't take one person's opinion and position who wants to disrupt life here. We have working families here, people who work very hard to put food on the table for their families. And what they have done over there is to say they'll come and disrupt life here and confront us. This is not what democracy is all about.
If I could just ask a question for both of you. This area has traditionally been such a strong Democratic area, as we all know. Would you have believed a year or two ago telling you that you'd be right here in Little Guyana, outside Sybil's, campaigning for a Republican candidate for Attorney General, Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, because of the issues that have commenced since?
I would not have believed it, but then politics is a strange thing. So, Michael, what is your...
Look, I'm running to represent all New Yorkers. Some issues transcend party affiliation. There are going to be people that don't vote for me, but I'm still going to represent them to the best of my ability. Because this is about representing the taxpayers. This is not about dividing people on racial lines. This is not about spreading election conspiracy theories. This is, or promoting someone who, once again, Letitia James has shown she's pro-criminal. This man is wanted in his home country for terrorism, for racism, and much more. And he's not going to sit here under my watch and engage in making political threats of violence against families, businesses, and storefronts in this community. And it doesn't matter if it's a predominantly Democrat community. I'm asking for their trust, and I know that if they entrust me with their vote this time around, they'll be voting for me again in 4 years, because I'm here. I'm not going to let them down. People move to this country go side by side with people that aren't like them. And we're supposed to be living in peace and not living in fear, and nobody's going to live in fear when I'm the Attorney General of this state.
If I could just add on to that. So we have the Letitia James issue, which has turned out a lot of people here. But in general, I personally, the Guyanese community is very socially conservative. But be it for other reasons, be it the immigration issue, etc., they often end up voting Democrat due to perceptions of Democrats will often vote immigration, Republicans, the rhetoric. This is a socially conservative area. I know that you are also a lawyer who's practiced immigration law, helped many immigrants. Is there anything that you want to say on that, connecting on other issues, not just the James issue, high crime, etc.?
I come from a family where my dad had relatives that came here and changed their name because Italians were discriminated against. So I understand coming from this type of background. I want everybody to be able to live their American dream, and their families to be able to prosper, and their kids to be able to be safe and get quality or access to a quality education. And what I would say is, when I was here today, I've had people say, you're the first Republican I've met in this community. Me and Joe Pinion in here, and Paul Rodriguez, because it's time to start showing up to communities and saying, we are going to represent your best interests. Give us a chance. We're asking for your vote, and we're going to prove that you are going to make the right decision on November 8th when you vote Republican. Because the Democrats do not care about you. You're nothing more than a vote to them, and Letitia James on video proved she does not care about Little Guyana, and she's also proven with her track record. The only thing Letitia James cares about is her own political ambition, and she doesn't want to be the Attorney General of the state.
Check, one,
she
two.
wanted to be the governor. She ran for governor, and she failed, but now she's sitting in the AG's office, so she gets her next shot. Michael Henry's running to be the Attorney General for all New Yorkers, and it does not matter your race, gender, religious affiliation. Nothing of that matters. We're all New Yorkers. We're all in this together, and we're all going to make this state the way it should be.
Even to that point, right? You talk about immigration. I mean, there are 4 million people waiting to come to this country legally. Members from my own church have been waiting 5, 10, 15 years for spouses to join, for children to join, and yet somehow we have made it fashionable for people to come here and break the law to pursue their American dream. And there are so many people desperate to go through the legal channels to do so. And so for me, my family from Jamaica, so many people from Guyana saying that, look, give us the help to make that legal line go a little faster. Give us the resources to make sure that more people from our communities can pursue their American dream and live it out right here in New York.
Yeah, just follow up. I'd be remiss on behalf of the Guyanese people if I didn't ask you. You have some people, Guyanese or other immigrants as well, who they happen to come illegally because they're in search of the American dream, better future, etc. And that's just how they ended up to come. But they're otherwise law-abiding. They've been here for many years, etc. How would you deal with that? Would you favor a compassionate solution to that? Ronald Reagan, for example, favored amnesty in exchange for border security at the time. Any position that you would offer on that?
First, you have to secure the border. There is no appetite for any other conversation until we can actually secure the border and make sure that we're still not going to have that flood of ignorance. But I do think that we have to be a compassionate nation, and certainly if we're talking about children who are brought here through no fault of their own,
such as the Dreamers.
America to me is a promise, and part of that promise is saying that we do not hold children accountable for the actions of their parents. So I think that we have to have that conversation seriously, and I think everyone who has been here, who's been following the law, we can talk about whether there is a fine, whether there is some type of process where they can continue to pursue the American tradition if cultivated. But again, the first step before we have any of those conversations has to be the security of the border, not just because of the immigration crisis, but because now the scourge of the drugs that are careening into our streets and our communities, particularly here in New York City, defensible, that is all over the place because we have not secured the border and we have allowed these drugs to come into our community.
Well, the Democratic community definitely is concerned about drugs and high crime. To further the Reagan comparison, Ronald Reagan in 1980, he campaigned in the South Bronx. He went to a neighborhood most Republicans would never go to, and he ended up being one of the few Republicans to win New York in a presidential election. You guys are out here today in a neighborhood most Republicans would never come to, and you may be on the verge of the biggest Republican wave in New York since 1994, George Pataki.
This election, and Letitia James knows this, is much closer than she wants anyone to believe.
Yep.
And every one of your votes is going to matter. Your fate is in your hand. And by the way, don't let her try to apologize to you before November 8th. Everyone's seen in a private setting what she stands for. Let her just be retired on November 8th and move on with her life. She does not deserve to represent this community or this state.
There's polling out from the Trafalgar Group that suggests Mr. Henry is winning even by a small margin. So we're on the verge of what could be a very historic Republican wave in New York right now.
Crime, corruption, cost of living, and access to a quality education transcends party affiliation. We are going to make sure that everyone has a better life in this state. This is about the people. That's why we're running. We're not career politicians. We're giving up our personal lives to represent the people of this state. We're asking for your trust.
Yeah, actually, Mr. Henry, he's a lawyer. He's never run for office before, if I'm correct, right? This is your first time running for office. This is your first time running for office as well? Yes.
I've never run for federal office here, and I think for me, it's really focused on trying to say, look, people say a lot of things. Chuck Schumer never wants to say my name, but tomorrow morning, the President of the United States is getting on Air Force One and flying to attend a rally 500 yards from my home in Yonkers. It's not a coincidence. This is the first time a sitting president has come to Yonkers to campaign. It's because they know that Chuck Schumer is vulnerable.
And Bill Clinton.
Good morning.
Yeah, they might be speaking now, but Bill Clinton's in Brooklyn right now campaigning, so the Democrats are very afraid right now.
When Obama shows up, that's when you know we're getting ready to win.
He cut an ad for her. Sorry? No, I don't have a card. But is there anything that you'd want to say about showing up here today?
What is that?
Is there anything you'd want to say about showing up here today?
The accident.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I need your number.
We're live right now, but I'll talk back with you later.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is gathering here.
Okay. So
folks, good morning, each and everyone.
We have them preparing to speak now.
Can I get a vibrant response from you guys? Good morning, everyone. That's how we start. We start with positive energy. And you see that Mother Nature that give us that light energy? Let me be more stronger than that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and a pleasure to stand among you wonderful folks here.
Thank you very much.
In its capacity, I have been called upon by Chris and other members to take the opportunity to start today's proceeding. We ask the Divine Lord to be a part of this proceeding here today. Being Hindu, Muslim, or Christian, or whatever nationality or ethnicity or religious background you are, a moment of silence to involve the Lord blessings with us here today. Can we have that moment, please? Thank you very much. There's a great saying says, silence speaks wonders. As today we had the opportunity to walk down Liberty Avenue with some amazing, energetic individuals collectively. And among us, we have 4 important figures here today standing as Republican candidates for changes and betterment in New York State, city, and most of all, greater extent, USA. These individuals are Paul Rodriguez. Raise your hand to the audience there, please, Mr. Paul. Put your hands together for him, please. Mr. Paul King, the King of Queens. Put your hands together, make some noise for him. Joe Pinion for U.S. Senator. Mr. Joe Pinion has some great opinions, and listen to him as he's going to share it with y'all. Last but not least, this young man that is standing next to me that make me look a little bit handsome next to him is Mr. Michael Henry. Put your hands together as he'll be eliminating the idiot we have here in our present position as an Attorney General who reflects nothing but a racist and a biased individual based on what she's done to not only New Yorkers, but beyond the shores of the USA, especially our golden country called Guyana, with the help of a very racist individual, Rickford Burke in Brooklyn. So we need to sensitize you guys to cast your vote Republican straight down. There is no ifs and buts about that. I've been working at the polling station, and I observed some time back when I was working, some of the folks who work at the polling station, they are pro-Democrats. So they tell the people, they brainwash the people. You see here, Democrat vote all the way straight down. I observed that at many polling stations and I work there. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, energetic-wise, put your hands together for these 4 amazing sons of USA. No, I want to be vocal and physical. Make some noise for them, please. Mr. Jack Barat is in the audience here. Thank you very much. Without any hesitation, the man who's going to make things work better for USA or New York, Mr. Michael Henry, our Attorney General to be and will always be. Put your hands together for him, please.
Thank you all for having me here in Little Guyana today. My name is Michael Henry, and I'm running to become your next Attorney General because we all know that things are not okay. And the good news is this November 8th, we are going to dismiss Tish James from the Attorney General's office. The day before, Tish James declined our debate invitation. She was caught in Brooklyn praising a man named Rickford Burke, who is wanted in Guyana for terrorism, for racism, and much more. Yay! And this man, everyone knows what he's done in his home country. But I was surprised to learn of the threats of violence that he's been calling for on businesses and homes in this community. Yeah. And this man, who Letitia James called her brother from another mother, is not going to get away with engaging in calls for political violence in the state of New York when I am the Attorney General of this state. Unlike Letitia James, I'm not going to be a pro-criminal Attorney General. I am going to be here for you and your families. And I love this state. And I love this country.
We love you too.
And we all come here to live side by side. And threats of political violence and threats of violence coming from another country to here are not going to be tolerated.
Exactly.
And for some reason, Letitia James thought she could use the power of her office and call on other Democrat attorney generals and call on the Biden DOJ and Biden administration to get involved in the democratic process in Guyana. But you want the truth? Letitia James is advancing election denialism. The United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, the European Union, and many Afro-Caribbean nations have stood by the validity of the 2020 election. And Letitia James should do her research instead of trying to divide people. She has no business trying to get involved in the democratic process in another country.
Well said, well said.
But the good news for everyone here is 2 Trafalgar polls have me leading Letitia James for Attorney General of the state of New York. And what we are going to do is we are going to work together to tackle the crime crisis, to tackle the corruption crisis, to tackle the cost of living crisis. And we're going to work together to make sure your children have access to a good quality education.
Well said, well said.
But this race is going to be close. And everybody has to tell your friends, your neighbors, your family, go on social media, go on WhatsApp, tell everybody to get out and vote Republican down the line.
Top to bottom.
Letitia James showed what everybody's realizing. The Democrats have not only abandoned Little Guyana, they've abandoned the people of the state of New York.
Well said.
I'm running to be your next Attorney General. Letitia James doesn't want to be Attorney General. She wants to be the governor. And she's using this office for her personal ambitions.
She's incapable of.
I'm running to represent you and your families. And this November 8th, we are going to dismiss Tish. And when I'm the Attorney General, it's not going to be the communities like Little Guyana that are living in fear of the threats of violence. It's going to be the criminals who are living in fear of being held accountable for their actions.
Yes, yes.
And we are going to restore a sense of what's right and wrong, and we are going to change the face of what New York politics looks like. Thank you all. Michael Henry 4AG, spread the word. We are going to win this election November 8th, and we're going to do it with the help of communities like Little Guyana.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for our future AG. When I say AG, not Attorney General, action guy. He's going to take action in his own hands and make things better. Put your hands together for the action figure, Attorney General. Everybody make some noise for him, please. After all these gentlemen finish their public address to you all, we will have a little bit question interaction with them. So let them make their presentation to you all first, then we're going to take questions. Okay? Just cooperate with us, please. Next, I'd like to introduce to you all Mr. Paul Rodriguez. He's running for the state controller. Put your hands together for Mr. Paul.
Paul Rodriguez running for state controller.
Like Joe Biden there? Now, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Rodriguez. I'm running for New York State Controller. Now, for those of you who don't know exactly what the controller does, through the oversight of any activity where state spending is utilized and through his stewardship of the state's pension fund, the controller can exert influence over nearly $500 billion of the state's money. And yet most people have no idea who the controller is, much less what the controller does. So part of that function is fighting corruption, is making sure that we are keeping our promises to our retirees. So in other words, you have a lot of power to do a lot of good for New Yorkers, but instead, it's become increasingly apparent that the extent of the Democrats' campaign here in New York, and in fact, I would say nationwide, is two things. Republicans, and by extension, of course, Lee Zeldin here specifically, we hate women and we hate democracy. Now think about that second one. We hate democracy. Such wonderful rich irony considering what we're discussing here today with Tish James. The only election denial that is going on is not really what happened 2 years ago here in this country. It's what they're doing yet right now. That's the true election denialism. That's the true bullying. That's the true meddling in democracy. So think about it. The party that likes to fashion itself. Listen, we're the Democratic Party, so we believe in democracy. Except when we don't agree with the results. That's the true election denialism. But let me tell you right here what we're facing as New Yorkers, and I put this to people very simply. The American dream is currently in jeopardy here. Now, what do I mean by the American dream? It's nothing more complicated than having the ability and freedom to be able to improve your condition and end life in a better place than where you started from. And as a parent, a father of 3 daughters, to me, my American dream is making sure that their life is better than what I had it. And I'm sure when they have their children, they'll want to make their life better for their children than what they had it. But unfortunately, for more and more New Yorkers, that dream is becoming elusive. They're finding it much harder, if not impossible, to be able to achieve their American dream here in New York. And we all know the reasons. We have the highest taxes in the nation. We have a crippling cost of living that only gets worse. We have an environment for investment and business that's very hostile, whether it's large business or small business. We have rampant corruption. And yes, of course, we have the deterioration of public safety, of rising crime, because of cashless bail, because of idiotic policies such as defund the police, and because of the end of broken windows policing, where it's basically become open season on anybody walking down the streets. For this reason, hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers have already left this state. Now, for those of us who have stayed behind, Kathy Hochul, our governor, says, well, if you disagree with me, you can leave. But those who stay behind, those of us who love and are trying to make this the place to raise our families, she says, those who stay behind, I'm going to squeeze the life out of you. Because the more money that I spend, the more money that I waste, the more money that I give away to donors, allegedly, the more we're going to have to tax you to keep the government running. So we are facing an inflection point. What happens between now and don't think of just November 8th. You know, in martial arts, they tell you to punch through your target. You're going to have to think beyond November 8th because you know there's going to be shenanigans. Already in the press, they're starting to say it is ridiculous and absurd that anyone should assume that we'll have election results on Tuesday evening. This will probably take very, very, many days, perhaps weeks. They're already trying to condition you to think that, hey, don't expect to actually know what's happening November 8th. I think we will know who's going to be the new governor, attorney general, controller, senator, and down the line, most of them November 8th. But keep in mind that you have to work from now and beyond it. And remind everyone you know, every neighbor, every friend, every colleague, remind them who were the ones who were forcing you, who were forcing
because they know they're going to get away with it. That ends.
And then they lock you up on the shop owner.
Yeah, if you're the shop owner and you defend yourself, you're in jail. That ends. Working with these gentlemen, we're going to put an end to that. Inflation robs money from everyone, and you can't save money to buy a home, to start a business, if you're struggling to pay for food and energy, and it's going to be a bad winter for energy costs because of the Biden administration. Well, Joe and I are going to go down to Washington and change some things. We're going to get this back on track so you can afford to keep planning for the future. And the future belongs to our children. The public school systems here, we're lucky to have a few great public schools here, but on the whole, it's failing us. And the Democrats are focusing on pushing parents aside to indoctrinate your kids in different values than you have. We need them to have our values. We need them to learn the essential skills they need in life so that they could be the next great American generation. So I'm proud to work with these folks, and I make you a promise. This won't be the last time you see us. When we're in office, we'll be back here working with you. That's how problems get solved, working with people who live the life, who know the problems, not staying in some ivory tower, not staying in Washington and saying, well, I'm busy, I'm getting you money. No, we need to work with you, and I look forward to that, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm running against Gregory Meeks for Congressional District 5 here in here in Queens. I'm from Rockaway, and thank you again.
Put your hands together for Mr. Paul King. Remember, folks, when you go to the polling station and you see these names, there are pamphlets out there or literatures to sensitize and educate you who they are and what they're there for. So please take one and make use of it. Educate yourself. Oh, do me a favor. I want to acknowledge your presence here. Please come. Look at this young lady's hat. What it reads. Where are you from, Mama?
Originally from Colombia.
Colombiana, mucho cumbia, tiene mucho fiesta aquí. Ladies and gentlemen, mi hermana from Colombia, America. Put your hands together for her. What's your heart reads? Trump 2024. You see, the media and the opposition and the present government administration, they want to paint President Trump as a racist and the Republican as a racist. No, they are not. This is a living example to show the Republican and the president is not about race. Thank you, sister. Mucho gracias, mi hermana or mi mama. You could be my mama. Tiene mucho. Es bueno, mama. Ladies and gentlemen, this young man, Mr. King, who just spoke, he's from Rockaway. And the only way you want your way to be rock, vote for him. He's going to rock your way to victory for betterment. So, Mr. King of all kings, put your hands together for me one more time. Thank you, mama. Next, I have a very important man next to me. He looks younger than me. And I would like to, Chris, allow me, let me do my business. Yeah. I have Mr. Joe Pinion. He will be running for U.S. Senator. Put your hands together for him, please. Mr. Joe, the floor is all yours. Put your hands together for this brother, please. This one, the Republican is very diverse, you see? We're not racist. We are very important people, are a party for each and every one. Mr. Joe Pinion, take it away from here, brother.
Well, it's good to be here with all of you at this historic corner. For those that don't know, I am Joe Pinion, the Republican nominee for U.S. Senate, running against Chuck Schumer, a man who has been down in D.C. for 42 years, has been in the United States Senate for 24 years, and I promise you our lives are not better off as a result. We live in a state where 1 out of 3 black children live in poverty. We live in a state where we have 65% of the students that look like me that cannot read at grade level. That is not a legacy of success. It is a legacy of failure, but more importantly, it is an abdication of responsibility. We are here because of the political circumstances, but I promise you, it is bigger than politics why we all chose to run. We are here to make a new covenant with this community. We are here to make a new pact with the people that call New York State home. That you should not have to flee your home to live your best American existence. I stand here before you, the first Caribbean American ever nominated for U.S. Senate in the history of New York State. I didn't run to make history, but it is certainly important that we note that fact, because perhaps the absence of people that look like us down in D.C. with the power that is given to those in the United States Senate is the reason why, when we call on people like Chuck Schumer to ensure there's enough baby formula on the shelves, the call goes unanswered.
He's an idiot.
Perhaps that is part of the reason why, when we look at what happened down in Haiti, where the president is assassinated with co-conspirators that live in Florida, people like Chuck Schumer say, I have no idea what happened. This is not an accident. We are living through failure by design, and the people that bear the brunt of that failure are the people that call communities like this home. Jamaican communities, Guyanese communities, Caribbean communities writ large have not received the America that was promised, because the people that like to bang on the table and say only they are willing to fight for us go down to DC with the power that we have given them, and then use our promise as a bargaining chip to empower themselves, enrich their friends, and we have nothing left to show for ourselves but shattered dreams. And so I'm here to make promises we intend to keep, that we're going to keep coming back here to this community. That we are going to promise to say that when you call us, we will answer the phone. You will not get a recording that says we are not taking calls at this time. Send an email, which is what happens often when you call Charles Ellis Schumer's office.
Oh, wow. Sad.
We need people that prioritize your pain, but also prioritize your dreams. The dream of home ownership has become further and further away because the opportunity that is supposed to be given to homeowners has become a distant memory. When you look at the crime that has gripped this community, we start with the drugs that you can find almost on every single corner. Where do they come from? An open border that Chuck Schumer wants to keep open. The fentanyl that now is the leading cause of death for anyone that lives 18 to 45 in this nation. That is abysmal. And you do nothing about it. It is bringing death to black, white, Hispanic, and everyone in between. Asians, everyone alike is dying because of this neglect. I can deal with the man who makes a mistake and admits it. I cannot deal with people who see a problem and want to pretend nothing is going wrong. And Chuck Schumer has been pretending that nothing is going wrong in our lives for 42 years. With your help on November 8th, we're going to make sure that he never has the power to ruin our lives ever again. So we are here for a rally, which means that we have to give some instructions. The instructions are clear. If your friends and your family members have not seen our debate against Chuck Schumer, encourage them to watch it, to get a clear side-by-side comparison, to hear from a man whose only ideas didn't work 20 years ago, and yet he keeps trying to implement them today. Hear from a man who says he loves us, but was also silent when they threatened our community with eviction in the midst of COVID if we didn't get vaccinated, threatened to throw our children out of school if they didn't get vaccinated, threatened to make sure we had no place in civil society if we did not do what they wanted us to do. That is not a message of hate. That is a message of contempt. And yet somehow they think with that contempt they show for us, we are still supposed to lie down, kneel down, and give them the purest thing we have to offer them, our vote and our voice. We're here to reclaim our voice. We're here to let everybody know that there are people like Michael Henry, people like Paul Rodriguez, people like Joe Pinnon who are going to fight for this community with every breath that they have.
Thank you.
My grandmother, the woman that put the Bible in my crib, the woman that put the fear of God in my spirit, she died alone at 100 years old in a nursing home. And we now know that this government of our state, this government of our nation, lied to us about the threat of COVID, lied to us about the dangers in those nursing homes, then used government resources to cover up that lie. That's not my opinion. That is a report that has been put in a report that's been put out by the comptroller of this state, Paul Rodriguez's opponent. Where's the investigation in Congress? into what happened to my grandmother? Where is the investigation into the fact that the majority of the people that did the dying disproportionately in those nursing homes look like us? Turns out nobody cares, except when it's time for them to come show up and ask for your vote. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, we are asking them to do something maybe they have never done before, maybe they thought they could never do. Go down to their local polling place and fill in a bubble next to a person who has an R next to their name. I'm not asking them to adopt the gospel of republicanism. I'm not asking them to change their party affiliation. I'm asking them to place their trust in my hands as I place my heart in yours and say together, we are going to build a better New York. We are going to restore the promise of America. We are going to make sure that the dream that brought my mother from the shores of Jamaica to the beacon of hope right here in New York, that promise is restored. So God bless you all. Thank you so much for coming out here. Spread the word that Guyana has a friend in Joe Pinto. Guyana has a friend in Michael Henry. Guyana has a friend in Paul Rodriguez. But more importantly, that this community, every New Yorker, have champions in those who place their needs, their promise, and their dreams over the politics that are ripping this nation apart and bringing us to our knees no more. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this young man here, who will be running as U.S. Senator, deserves our vote. For too long, Chuck Schumer took us for granted, or taken us for granted. Time for change, time for betterment. R for Republican, R for restored and rebuild. Put your vote together for Republican again, one more time. I didn't know this brother from Jamaica, man. Man, that's my youth. Respect you, brother.
Warwick Castle.
Where's my youth?
Warwick Castle.
Boom, fire. Everybody.
You know, he's not the only Caribbean. I'm Puerto Rican, so I'm also.
Oh, you from PR. Okay, you have some P2Ps and rights for you later, man. No, I wouldn't do that. That's why you're close to my side. Ladies and gentlemen, no, please come quickly. Come quickly. Rapido, por favor. This young lady here, having some papers, come, it's a newspaper. It says Queens County Beacons. On the Beacons paper, you see the A team. This is the A team that will take the state and the city and the country to a better direction. So please take a paper from her, please. Oh, she escribe article. Bueno, mama. So please support the cause. It's free. So it's not about money. So please, she's representing the Republican. So please do me a favor. Take a paper from her and read what is it all about. Time for questions and answers. QA. Mr. My Italiano Guyanese. Please, I always forget your name, brother. Mike Duval. I give the mic to you, so if you have some question, you want to make a statement, please free to do so. These gentlemen will give you their listening ears.
Well, actually, good evening, everyone. I don't have a question because my question is about change, and I'm looking at change. So I'm going to bypass that question. The change is what we need. And most people, if you watch television, and the crime in their neighborhood is rampant, and they all say, you know what, I'm going to move. I'm going to go to Florida. I'm going to Texas. Don't move. Move your vote. If you're a Democrat, move your vote over to the Republican power or the Conservative power. Move your vote. Don't pack up and move to another place. It's very simple. If you do the same thing over and over, it's called insanity. And that's what we have right now. And a lot of people here who are Democrats, including myself, I will not vote Democrat this time. I will vote Republican. Yeah! I will vote on the conservative line because I want them to get more votes on the gubernatorial race so they can stay as a party the next election. If they have less than 50,000, then they won't be on the ballot. Okay? Now, what I'm looking at here, and for the candidates, it's not a crowd. This crowd is like Congress. 535 people, but they represent the whole country. So what you have to do is go home and text your friend, call your friend, and tell them what you hear today, not to vote Democrat this time, vote Republican. I convinced a couple of people, and he told me, well, I'll vote for one, which is Zeldin. So I have to work in him a little more. Okay? But what you have to do, And not only go vote, when you vote election day, promise yourself, don't go by yourself. Take a couple of people with you and make sure they vote. That's how you make changes. You can't just call and say, well, I'll go vote. And I hope every one of you here, if you're not a registered voter yet, I know the Guyanese community is a very lit community. We know each other and we know everybody else. Just ask her, do me a favor. I know you're a Democrat, man. I know. But do me a favor this time and vote for change. And I go to Roy's Bar, and one of the reasons I'm here today is two of my friends got mugged on 103rd and 117th Street. And I'm saying it's coming close to where I live. And I'm looking for these guys to get changes. The governor is the guy who can make changes. And this is a democratic state. And if you don't deliver, then we know what to do. But he will deliver because he knows if you don't, change will happen. So thank you very much. And don't forget to vote. Don't forget to vote and don't vote alone. Thank you.
Hear what she said? Gregory Meeks become weak. He must go. Yeah. Been there too long.
24.
He look like he's older than some of the trees in New York. He's well rooted. For those who will have very important questions, for these important individuals standing next to me here, feel free to come up. Don't be ashamed. Don't be shy. Be brave. Anyone would like to ask a question or make a statement, please come forward and do so.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, take the mic. This is my brother from the Ari Samaj Temple. My Rambridge, come forward.
What I found, the middle class people have been squeezed all around, either the Democrats or the Republican Party. What you guys will do with the middle class type of people who are being squeezed with the taxes and so forth? Especially, I mean, I voted for Donald Trump twice, right? But he have imposed taxes, limitation, $10,000 deductible for the middle income. And it's making us pay $10,000, $12,000 more. So what you guys will do about that?
Yeah, we need to bring back the SALT deduction increase for every single homeowner immediately. Chuck Schumer is the most powerful man in D.C. He said he was going to get it done nearly 2 years ago. Where is it? I'll tell you where it is. It's on the cutting room floor, because every time it shows up in Joe Manchin's office, every time it shows up in Kristen Sinema's office and says he needs to get a vote, they say you can't have my vote unless you get rid of these SALT deductions. So guess what? The middle class tax relief that all of you deserve, it never shows up. But he still has his seat. He still has his job. He still has his power. So the first thing I do when I get down there is making sure that we're not talking about the politics, we're talking about the people. That means school choice for every single person that calls this state and this nation home, because our children deserve to go to whatever school gives them the best opportunity to succeed. It also means that we raise the cap on those SALT deductions to give you the tax relief you need. It also means that we stop printing money recklessly, which means that if you're on Social Security, your buying power goes down. That if you're somebody who's dependent on that 401k, you just watch that go down 30,000. If you're somebody who works a hard job every single day, you just watch your buying power down $6,000, your actual earnings down $4,000. That is a actual disaster, even if you got a raise, because most people didn't get a 10% raise. So we have to get serious about helping the middle class. We have a middle-out economy. America flourishes when we take our boot off the neck of the middle class and allow them to be able to robustly pursue their American dreams.
I'm going to add to that. I look forward to working with Joe in Washington on these issues. I mean, but there's two things you need to do. One is stop making it worse for people. So Joe talked about inflation, recklessly printing money. It drives up costs. Ultimately, it leads to recessions. And then look what we have now. The price of getting a mortgage is going to go up and up. So you can't own a home. This is what middle class people want. So we need to stop the bleeding first. Stop the bad policies. So we'll get there, and that'll be one of the first things we do. Then you need to create an environment where people can flourish. And for me, part of that is supporting small businesses. I'm a small businessman. I have employees. If I want to pay my people more, if I want to give them better health insurance, if I want to grow the business, which is good for the community, it's good for my employees, I need to get the government off my back. When they take money from me, when they take time away from me, when they steal that from me, they're stealing it from my employees, and those are the people in the middle class trying to raise their families. So we'll stop the bad stuff and we'll create a better environment for everyone.
So one of the ways that we're going to need to do in order to make sure that they don't just keep taxing us more, we have to get spending under control. There's no way around it. We have to find ways to cut spending. But at least one thing we can do right now, when you turn your ballot around and when you see those ballot proposals, starting with the first one, which is asking us to take on another $4.5 billion of debt, we have to stop the government getting us more into debt and simply spending more and more money on programs or initiatives that may sound very benevolent and very nice. And, they said, I'm not against that. I want to make things better for people. I want more equity. Perhaps wherever you lie on climate change, I think we should address that. But keep in mind that these proposals are by and far just simply excuses to spend more and more of your tax dollars. And it's never enough, which means that they're going to run into shortfalls. Already they're talking about shortfalls next year because because now they're finally acknowledging that we are or will be in a recession and that we will likely need to raise taxes because we will have tax shortfalls next year. So one of the primary things you need to do is get that spending under control. Before we can even cut spending, we have to tell them, stop spending our money. This is not the time. Government, when things are fine, they love to increase spending. And when things are bad, they love to increase taxes. The notion that they should tighten their belts like the rest of us is completely alien to them. So you have to remind them, no, this is my money you're spending. It's not your money.
In this state, the Attorney General's office.
Are we going to have another January 6th?
What are you talking about?
No.
What are you talking about?
Let him finish. Like what Trump did in the White House.
Excuse me. That is not for him. That's not for this. Please.
What do you mean? You got to follow cue, man.
Where's your intelligence?
No, he can say what he wants. You don't have to insult him. In this state, the New York Attorney General's office oversees a lot of different industries. And what I want to do is professionalize this office. This office is not responsive to the needs of the people of this state. It lacks a lot of coordination, and it needs to be professionalized and streamlined to where people aren't waiting a year and a half to get a license. People aren't waiting a year and a half to get a piece of paper stamped. So what we are going to do is remove the politics from the office, professionalize it, and make it responsive in an efficient manner and a timely manner to the needs of the people of this state.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for these four gentlemen that respond to this brother's question. Anyone here in this audience would like to ask a question? I must, on behalf of that individual, I'd like to apologize for that. Anyone, you ask any question, no problem. We're not really offended, but you just think before you speak. I want to tell you guys one thing. With this election, normally as individual, when we want to get to a better path, sometimes we cross the bridge or we cross the road to a different way. This election, you feel free to cross or cross over from Democrat to Republican. There's no fear about that. There's no changes. There's no fear. Have no fear. You feel free to make that change and cross over. So take the pleasure from a Democrat to a Republican, from top to bottom. When he said R, Republican, remember that. Folks, on behalf of my fellow Guyanese, please give your support to the Republican Party that has interest not only for this country, but for us as citizens of this state and this city. And most of all, a wide cross-section of the United States of America. I want to tell some folks in this audience here today, if it wasn't for a Republican government under President Trump, there would never be a PPP government in Guyana. There will never be democracy in the true sense. Yeah, I want to tell you guys, President Trump was very instrumental, and he orchestrated that his representative takes measures to restore peace and fair and democracy election in Guyana. So now the whole media pointing fingers and, well, you say fake news. I support that line, fake news. Please remember, to vote Republican. If it wasn't for President Trump again, there will never be a PPP government in Guyana. And democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, 2024 will be the big day. It's called Judgment Day, where Republican will take this United States back in full control. Any folks would like to say something here, please come free. On this ballot, on this information here, this is reflecting that where you should say no on the ballot pertaining to these conditions. When you go to the polling station, I think you'll be having something of this nature. Vote, say no to all these changes. You have a race theory. Pardon me? Please come forward, face the crowd and ask the question. Come from this way.
You want me to hold the camera? Yeah.
My question to you, sir, is just a little off the campaigning today. Is the Attorney General, Alita James, is she stepping out of her contest? Is she abusing her office to saying that Guyana government is a racist government, that the Guyana government don't treat the black people properly well? I would like to know why she go on public record on a big stage in Brooklyn saying that the Guyana government is a racist government. Can any one of you guys knows about Guyana government? Can you talk about Guyana government and let the people here know what this government is doing for Afro-Guyanese in Guyana presently now and what they were doing before 2015? Someone, can you please answer these questions?
Well, the problem with what Letitia James did is there was someone who is threatened not only political violence and been involved in political violence in Guyana and has multiple warrants for his arrest, including for terrorism, racial hatred, and much more. He's trying to incite and threaten people here in this community, saying that individuals should try to disrupt businesses and homes. And people here should not be threatened with political violence, especially political violence from an individual who's unwanted in another country. What I would say, what's going on here is this is just a pattern of Letitia James being pro-criminal. She has a soft spot in her heart for criminals. She is a pro-criminal, anti-police activist. This is an individual in 2018 who campaigned on cashless bail. She got what she wanted and it failed. And she could say that people say inaccurate things. We saw the video of your debate in 2018. You said, I've been fighting for cashless bail basically your whole political career. She got her start in politics in the Working Families Party. She was too far left when she ran for the city council for the Democrat Party to endorse her. And this year, she took an endorsement from that same party who said you cannot revisit any changes to cashless bail or take support from police and correctional unions. She said recently she needed to see more data. And quite frankly, it's a despicable mindset for the chief law enforcement officer of a state to have, because more data means more victims, and one victim is one victim too many. And the problem with her is she does not believe in law enforcement, and she does not believe in the rule of law, and she's engaged in election denialism in contrast to what the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, the EU, and many Afro-Caribbean nations have said. If the things that she's claiming were going on, why are Afro-Caribbean nations standing up for the government of Guyana? The problem here is she probably didn't know the information, and she wanted to just celebrate her friend. Rickford Burke is Letitia James' brother from another mother. She's endorsed his behavior. She stood by his behavior. I promise the Indo-Guyanese community and the Guyanese community as a whole, when I'm the Attorney General, nobody is going to get away with threats of political violence to your families, your homes, and your businesses. And this is not a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. It's an issue about human rights and decency.
You want to say something to that? Ladies and gentlemen, our Attorney General, to be, said something there. Put your hands together back for him, please. As a Guyanese in this foreign land, I very much appreciate you guys' concern of my country back home, based on what has recently transpired in Brooklyn, based reflecting racism against our country, our party in government. There's no, since day one, go ahead.
Nobody endorses racism, But what Letitia James does is she's a professional divider. Whole career is based on dividing people, whether it's party, whether it's race, whether it's religious affiliation, whether it's sexual orientation. We've had enough. We're all New Yorkers. We're all in this together. And when I'm running to be the Attorney General, I'm going to represent everybody, regardless of your race, gender, political orientation. She's a professional divider. I'm going to be a professional uniter. And I'm going to represent you even if you didn't vote for me, but you all need to vote for me because you will get the change that you deserve. Stop the division, start uniting.
And I just want to say something for the gentleman who asked that other question before, that unlike Democrats, you can ask us anything. We Republicans respect free speech. We may not like what you're saying, we may not agree with what you're saying, but you know what? We're not going to shut you down. So you want to come afterwards, ask any of us whatever questions you have, you can. We're not going to take that right away from you because that is the basis of democracy. Somehow this notion of the way to save democracy is to undermine it by making sure you don't say anything I don't like. That's not democracy. That is the tyranny of the Democratic Party, and under one party rule where there's no checks and balances and there is no diversity of opinion.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to acknowledge an individual who was very instrumental in making this event happen. There is no other than Professor Charles Sugren. Put your hands together for him as a concerned Guyanese and a concerned resident or citizen of New York State and USA. Put your hands together one more time. Make some noise for him, please.
Thank you, MC. I want to thank all of you for being here this morning. We expected a larger crowd. I told the candidate we'll have a huge gathering here today. For some reason, they couldn't make it Saturday afternoon. But I want to let you know, please spread the word. Vote Republicans along the way. This time we need to change the dynamic of the country. And the country, look at New York. We have a democratic state. We have some of the most terrible crime. Look at the subway. Look at our education system. Look at 2 years ago, gas price was $2. After the election on November 8th, you know what? Gas price will go back up to over $4 because Joe Biden will not release more oil from the reserve. You will have to pay to the pump. Guys, let's vote Republican this election. Get elected to the Senate, to the Congress, to the Attorney General, to the Controller. Every state that every office we are running for, we ask you to please go out there, vote Republican this time around. I know the Richmond Hill area is a strong Democratic base, but this time around, they will vote Republican. Please tell your friends, your family, go and vote for our guys. And we want to thank you so much for coming out. And look forward when you elect them on Tuesday, they will come back to our community to meet with you to get all the issues. And I promise you they will address every single one. I know we have Deborah Mizir here who worked in the Bush administration. Deborah, you want to say a few words? Quickly. Thank you. She actually worked in the White House on the Bush administration.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm here in my personal capacity, and my name is Deborah Mizir. I'm a Republican, a very, very proud Republican. I'm so proud to stand with this diverse team here that is going to represent our interests. And Mr. Henry, you're right. It's a disgrace that any Attorney General in the United States would even implicitly advocate violence against one ethnic group. No way, there's no place for that. Thank you. Let's vote Republican in November.
That's the voice of Ms. Deborah Mizir. She was part and parcel of a Republican administration under President George Bush. Put your hands together for her, please, one more time. I have a very important man within this gathering here. He might be short, but he has a lot of tall responsibility and great capacity in this community. He's no other than Mr. Vishnu Mahadev. Vishnu, take off your mask, but don't rob nobody.
Well, folks, I want to make a simple comment, and that is Letitia James has shown us no respect, none whatsoever, because she did not consult with us. She did not engage us to find out our opinion. She did not care about what we stand for. And we as a people need to let her know, you cannot make statement about a foreign government when you're just a local elected official. She wants to stabilize and totally elected government. That is unfair for her. Rickford Burke cannot be a consultant for her because he is ill-informed, he's always biased and jaundiced. We need to stand up and let her know it is unacceptable. She needs to issue a press release before Tuesday to let us know where she stands on this issue that she was defaming the Guyana government. With that, I thank you again very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vishnu Mahadev. I'd like to echo a little bit more about that. Guyana government being attacked here by local elected officials who doesn't have no jurisdictions of Guyana's government and Guyana's running. And it was well orchestrated on a racist basis, on a race basis. Once again, on behalf of Mother Nature and we fellow citizens of this community who came out here to listen and support these gentlemen with their agendas and what they plan to do, the initiatives to make and take New York State and City to a better and much more prosperous direction. With any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we start with silence. Let's end with silence. Let me ask the Divine Lord to guide these gentlemen and all other Republican candidates who will be there for us to cast our vote for them. Lord, I call upon you to bless these souls and guide our thoughts and remove all our ignorance so as we can guide our ways for betterment by voting Republican responsibly. Ladies and gentlemen, I call on the Divine Lord with silence. Om, Om, Om. Let's a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Amen. And before I go, I'm very disappointed to a point that where this community didn't really come up in majority to be a part of this important procession. But nevertheless, they say one bad apple spoils the whole barrel. The little of us can have influence on the many who didn't come out here today. So please pass the word. Use the thing they call social media. Facebook, text message, WhatsApp, and let us sensitize the folks to go Republican. Once again, on behalf of us and this community, put your hands together. Would you like to say something?
Yeah.
Okay. I have someone who was there initially. They'd like to say something quickly. No, 1 second. You say something quickly.
No, we don't get to. It's the last one.
No, I just want to let everybody know that Mr. Henry, the candidate for Attorney General, will be showing up on Globespan on Monday night. So his dedication to the Guyanese community and outreach to us will continue on Monday. Elections on Tuesday, so please pay attention. Go out and vote. We talked earlier about the economy. A recession is when a neighbor loses their job. A depression is when you lose yours. And a recovery will be when the Democrats lose theirs. So on that note.
And one thing, you don't need a press release from Letitia James. You know where she stands. You need to vote Republican and tell everyone else to vote Republican.
Well said, Attorney General. The last but not least, but final words from him. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Just don't forget, the only way for a betterment is red, pink, New York, USA red. Republican. Republican all the way. Once again, may the Divine Lord continue to bless you. On the ballot, this paper they say.
With your father.
Oh, Andrew?
Yeah.
Say no to these conditions.
I'm so happy to
Say
meet
no
you.
to these conditions that is here. Say no.
I've known your dad since we were kids.
1 second. Please join him. Please join him.
You don't know nothing strange. You don't know nothing. You don't know anything. It's a we who have to put it.
Let me stand next to a rich man.
Sorry. They don't know what to do.
Once again, remember to vote Republican all the way down.